All right, welcome everybody. We are live here, and today we have a very special guest, Mr. Douglas Ernst. How you going, buddy?
Hey, thanks for the invite. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem at all. And we're also joined by Poland and Bandito there. How you going, fellas?
Very
Doing
well.
I
doing
was
great,
just,
especially with Doug here.
I
Such a
know, I was
pleasure.
just saying to Doug in the back room that it's a bit surreal to finally talk to the man himself, because I can remember what year would it have been, Doug? Back in the day, like 2017 or something. You were making.
Yeah, I think late 2016 and then early
Yeah.
2017. So
Yeah, it was. I remember there was you, there was Micah Curtis, Captain Cummings, and then your boy Zach got in on the game. There were a bunch of others, but I think it was mostly you who I was watching. Yeah, so this is just a bit funny for me.
yeah, those early days I was doing like probably, I don't know, I was trying to get like 3 or 4 videos a week, but then like Richard was doing like 3 or 4
3
a day.
Yeah, that was the
No.
thing. Like even the big YouTubers, they'd make one or two. They'd have a video out every 1 or 2 days, and then he just jumps onto the scene. He's like, no, you've really got to do at least 3 a day, and everyone was like, "What? Are you crazy?"
Yeah, well, back then, before the first adpocalypse or whatever it was, so it was like basically me and Richard and Captain Cummings were like in a DM group in Eglantine, and we would like kind of talk, and you could see that the stats were like every time you did a video, it was doing like really well, and I just
Yeah.
didn't have the time to do them, but like you could see his channel was just growing exponentially, and then the adpocalypse hit, and then like everybody's just sort of flatlined or it just like cratered after that, and then it started to slowly build back up again, and then I think there was like 2 more adpocalypse. There was like the Crowder one, and then the Captain Marvel was another one where like the
Yeah.
YouTube channels were just kind of hit pretty hard.
Yeah, but anyone who stuck through all that from way back in the day, there's just regular people sitting in their living room with 10 million subscribers or something like that. It's crazy.
Right.
I just want to say hello to the wonderful people that have showed up here in the chat before we get started. We got Skip Edwards Art here. He says, hey mate, how are we going? VIP's in the house. How you going, VIP? Mo Biggs is here. How the chat? We're very early today, Mo. Very early, so no complaints today, I hope. Skip Edwards is asking if anyone caught the Comicsgate Pictionary. I didn't, but I saw some people on Twitter saying it was really fun. I like the idea of that. Unfortunately
Best
for me,
show
it was
yet,
like,
apparently.
fantastic. Unfortunately for me, it started about 4 a.m. in the morning, so that was never going to happen.
No excuses.
Justin Dutton is here. He says, hello, sexy chat. Shane Burgess. Over or under time today? Yeah, exactly. We're very happy to facilitate Doug today so that he could come on. Boogiebot, what have you got for me today? Hey, howdy, hey, super early now, lol. Nice. Bandito, I see you're in there as well. Boogiebot Comics, great to see you here.
It's always good to hang out in the chat.
It is. All right, guys. All right. So, Mr. Douglas Ernst, I've got it here as well. Poland was showing it off earlier. Look.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. You might not remember this, but I saw a review by just some guy, and he gave a really good review of this book. So it's like, and this book came out back when I wasn't backing too many books, so I was always just a bit on the fence because you can probably tell from my accent, I'm in Australia. The shipping can be a bit expensive, so I was a bit wary of shipping, of buying a lot of books. So I didn't get yours, but after that review, I did get it. And just for anyone, I know that I'm really big. Like one of the big things that I push is readers first, customers first, fans first, and all that sort of stuff. And I want everyone to know that I got in touch with Doug on Twitter and said, do you have any of these left? And he said, yeah. And he said, you know what? I'll just ship it out to you. And you don't have to pay me yet. Just make sure the book arrives in pristine condition and everything. And then you can pay then. And he actually gave me a cost for the shipping that was way too low. And I said, no. I'm not costing you any money. So I really appreciated that, Doug.
Yeah, no, thanks for saying that, because it's one of those things where I really just wanted to get the book out to as many people as possible. And I'm like, I believed in the book. So I was like, if I could just get it out, I know that I'm going to be able to retain a certain, like a decent percentage of people. And the international stuff is weird and some people don't do it. And it's just strange. So I was like, you know what, if there's anybody that's on the fence or whatever, I'm not going to charge them. I'm not going to try and gouge them basically for shipping if they're international. And if I could just kind of create some goodwill with the international with the second round, then hopefully that will like pay off down the line.
It always does.
It definitely has. Like the quality of the book notwithstanding, that interaction alone, it sort of locked me in for the next book 100%. So yeah, anyone who take a lesson from Doug there, just putting yourself out there a little bit can pay dividends in the future.
Yeah, always be willing to go that extra mile, because it's not necessarily the profits that you're making now, but all efforts end up becoming exponential down the road.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where, to me, there's so many different things that are competing and vying for everybody's attention. And I need to try and find a way to either get above that noise, the white noise of like movies, video games, other comic books, mainstream books, indie books, just everything.
Yeah.
And like I have to like grind it out. And one way is to make sure to like do whatever I can customer service wise to make people be like, no, I'll give them a second look. If I'm on the fence, like if the guy's going to cut me slack on shipping to Australia or wherever the heck it is, like that's just that one little thing that might get that customer to take a chance.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah, no, totally. So we know your background on the whole, YouTube side of thing, commentary videos and stuff. What's your background in writing?
So in terms of like not as a professional, like I've always knew even when I was really young that I wanted to be a writer. And so I started off actually in middle school. They would ship me to the high school to do creative writing with like the high school kids. There was like a little program that they started, and that's where I sort of like started. And then in high school, I did all sorts of like they had this, again, the same creative writing. They would put out like books and like enter them into competitions, and my stuff was like really bad. But and then in college, I was an English major at University of Southern California, got out, and then that's along the lines, long story short, I ended up working for a newspaper in Washington, D.C. So that's not fiction, but my first love was always fiction. And so eventually, on a long enough timeline with all the YouTube stuff and everything, it was just, I don't know, the stars sort of aligned, and I met Timothy Lim and Brett R. Smith and Matt Weldon and Dave Dorman and all these guys, and it just kind of came together, and it was like, yeah, let's do this.
There's some pretty heavy hitters to me. That's really cool. I know. I mean, that even though I didn't back the book when it first came out, that Dave Dorman cover always just, it was like it was calling to me.
That was another instance where I was like, okay, I'm a unknown to pretty much all these people in terms, like, they know my YouTube channel, or maybe they read my blog or work at the newspaper, but it's just like, who is this guy? He's just putting out a book. Like, so I was like, I got to find a way to just sort of like make a statement, like, I'm not messing around here. So through Tim, he introduced me to Dave Dorman, and Tim was talking about, the premise of the book is combat veterans who become exorcists. And Dave was like, ooh, and he's like, I'm on board with that. And so that's how it kind of played out.
And how far along in the whole sort of, I guess call it like crowdfunding revolution, maybe, CG entering the crowdfunding scene, how far along did that all take place? Like, sort of where was it in the timeline?
When did I
did you start? You'd think, okay, I'm going to launch this book.
So actually, it was weird because I met Tim, and we actually were not even really talking about comics too much. Like, obviously, he had, I think it was Thump, the first 100 Days, that he did with Brett R. Smith. But we actually, so Tim is actually a practicing Catholic as well. So that's actually, we started talking about faith issues. And then I started talking to him on the phone, and we were talking about like faith issues and politics. It wasn't even really about comics. And eventually he was talking about when he was a kid, he had an idea for a G.I. Joe that was basically like an exorcist or someone who would like combat cobras, black magic or whatever. And I was like, oh, I have an idea for a book that's along those lines. And I explained it to him, and then we just were like, oh, it seems like we should probably work together. And so I'm losing track of time in kind of almost years, but I want to say there was sometime maybe early 2017 we started talking about it, and then I was just like, dude, I'm serious, like if you want to work together. He's like, yeah. And then I think it was like October 2017 as we met in Florida. I hope I'm not like a year off, but so in October 2017, that's where I basically gave him the script, and I met him and I met Mark Pellegrini down. It was like a work, fun sort of business trip because we were at like Disney World all day. And so while we were in line for all the rides and stuff like that, we would just be talking about the script and like bouncing ideas back and forth and getting to know each other. And then we met Englantine for dinner one night.
All the OGs.
Yeah, so that was pretty interesting. So, and then so as soon as Tim's schedule opened up, he was like, I want to do it, but Tim is, he just, as people know by now, he's on a schedule. He can't mess around. So everything is planned out. Does he still
have a full-time job?
Yeah. He's an ear specialist. He never sleeps. So
I'm just like, he's pumping out books all the time.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I have a job as well, and I'm an artist, but I mean, obviously I don't have the number of books behind me that Tim does. And the art is not phoned in. So it's pretty crazy that he can do all that.
Yeah, he's sort of like, so he'll basically put in his like 8-hour workday or whatever at the office, and then he comes home, and then he puts in like another 8-hour workday drawing, like almost every single day, and then he takes Sunday off. But I mean, his schedule is down to a T, and then he's just like super disciplined. I wouldn't be able to do it, so but he's made it work.
I mean, I try to do that. I don't know if I get a full 8 hours in after work though. Well, I've got a couple of young kids as well. They get pretty demanding,
right?
So it's only so much we can do. Hey, Blue just arrived. How's your newborn baby there, Blue?
Oh, the three of them are fine.
Oh dear.
Blue sent out a tweet saying that he'd be 5 minutes late because his wife was giving birth. Not quite.
To which none of us
we got
understood the.
We got our resident Catholic down there, Poland, as well here, and I just wanted to say, we're talking about the old days of this whole kind of crowdfunding boom. Poland is actually a new convert. He got into comics through YouTube, through guys like you and your boy Zach. So he's just like proof here that the whole system works. We can get, build audiences on this platform and get new readers.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where sometimes it's going to be a slow grind, but if you're in it for the long haul, and over time you could essentially, it keeps building upon itself.
Yeah, it's funny. It's only been 2 years, like as of this July, that I've read comics. So it's hard to believe it's actually already been that long, but it was purely from watching your videos, Doug and Zach's and Ethan's. It's like, yeah, I think I'll give comics a shot because, all the other entertainment had failed me objectively. So let's go see what they have to offer. And I've, been smitten ever since.
Very cool.
You mentioned that Tim and your guys' faith had a big influence on why you wrote this story. Are there any other influences that went into making Soulfinder?
Well, a lot of it is just my disgust with the mainstream industry. So I was sick and tired of, essentially the heroes they devolved almost all of them are like anti-heroes at some point in time, and you don't know who's a good guy, who's a bad guy, or even the bad guys are just kind of like they're just kind of crappy people. And so there was this moral relativism, and I was like, I just want good versus evil. And then I was like, okay, well, demons are just like total, there's no way you can mistake the evil element there. Okay, so now I want to pit them up against somebody who's like a good person. And so with comics, whenever there's a Christian character, or particularly a priest, like it's like you always know at some point in time, it's like he's going to end up being a molester. He's going to end up being like a bad guy, like a mustache twirling villain.
That is like a trope now almost. It's like,
and that wasn't always the case. Like you look at Daredevil, when his mentor was a Catholic priest. It was his connection still to God, because he had felt like he had fallen from grace, having to both go against his father's wishes, and also because he believed in the law and wanting to serve the law, but also realized that the spirit of the law wasn't being served through the courts. So there's a lot of that that's been lost in over the last 20 years, but it wasn't always the case. And also, I mean, just the idea of good characters has been lost. You look at Superman and Captain America, and first of all, the death of Superman, which we've brought up lots of times, and then of course Captain America being turned into a Nazi, and they turned him back, but it was like a clone of Captain America, so it's not it's not the true
the damage
original.
Is done as well.
Yeah, it's not the true original. And Douglas Copeland during the death of Superman had said, I always liked, he didn't read comic books, but he said, I always liked the idea of there being a Superman, because I always liked the idea that there was somebody who did good things in the world, who only did good things in the world. So yeah, it's good. It's interesting. No, it's good that you bring characters like that are meant to be good, that are symbolic of good. And I think it's difficult in our day and age to be able to do that.
Yeah, my thing is like with the way that Christians are portrayed a lot of time, you either get this sort of like Ned Flanders-ish sort of like goofy, like dork, loser sort of guy, or you just get the evil, like the he's a closeted guy, he's got the urges that he can't like resist, or whatever the heck it is, and you're just like, okay, I just want to do like a respectable character. And he's got his flaws too. He's a fallible man. Everybody has issues that they deal with. They have their predominant fault or sin or whatever the heck it is that they got to deal with. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I was like, I want him to like basically just be like a well-adjusted human being who's trying to do the right thing when he's faced with these really evil situations, or just like problems that come up in his life.
Doug, you
were gonna say something?
I was going to say, I just really appreciate that too, because I think now too many people are focused on just trying to, have some twists or subvert your expectations in some way, that a lot of times they end up making these stories that are extremely convoluted and not at all satisfying. So having a character who is straightforward and does satisfying things, I think that's the route to go, because you keep seeing this in like, Hollywood and, TV shows and all this other stuff, and in writing a lot. People are just, they're trying to make someone who's just too complicated and over the top anti-hero, and it ends up just muddying the waters on the whole story.
It's so rare for me that I actually have read the book of the guest who's on the show, because they usually take months and months to get here. And this actually did take a long time, because just when you sent this, Doug, the virus all kicked in. So our borders were locked for international shipping items. But I'm going to have a crack at just giving everyone a brief rundown of what goes in this book, and you can let me know if I'm where I go wrong. So you've got he's a ex-soldier. He's a wounded vet. I mean, this isn't a spoiler because it's literally the first page. There's an explosion in his vehicle, and he's out there on the street, and his arm's on fire and everything. And the next time we see him, he's now a priest. And it's a really it's one of those situations that you've got his there's strange things happening in his city. It's in somewhere in Maryland. I don't know if it's a big town or a small town. I can't remember from the story, but maybe you'll able to tell me. And yeah, so there's like the local police chief or cop or some guy, and he's coming to him because there's really weird things happening. That you know, occult things happening that's sort of outside of his purview. And the priest has this. Is his father Patrick? He has this connection to, you know, he likes to study the you know, the exorcism type things and everything, and demonology and all that kind of stuff. So he's helping out with him, but of course the bishop is like, you got to cut this stuff out, you know, this isn't what you're here to do. But it just keeps building and building and building until eventually it gets so bad that this guy shows up, and he's part of a secret order that everyone thought was defunct, called the SOULFINDERS. And they have to fight against a big demon dude who's really evil. It gets dark. It gets into as well Father Patrick's character, his background. He's got a pretty tragic past beyond the whole accident that he got when he was in war. And and then you get a good story. It's a good decently thick book. You get a good full story where he fights the demon and everything. And I won't say much more than that, but I found it a really enjoyable read, really fun. I'm a sucker for these heaven and hell stories. I love, all. It doesn't even matter if they're bad and cheesy. I love it. I love I love Devil's
But this one's
Advocate.
really good.
This one is really good. Constantine, all that sort of stuff. I'm a sucker for that. So yeah, really good read. How'd I go, Doug? Did I screw
Yeah, I
anything
think
up?
it's a good rundown. Even if you gave some spoilers, it wouldn't bother me or whatever. There's lots of reviews out there, and but yeah, I mean, I think good versus evil. A lot of people think they're like, oh well, they want this like gray area, but when everything's gray, it's just boring. And then you have the gray area plus it's the political, correct stuff where like, you could predict exactly what's going to happen. The characters exist in a little box. They will never go outside of that box because we're afraid of offending anybody.
Right.
They can't even be like real human beings. They're just this sort of like cardboard cutout sort of thing. And so to me, the greatest drama is when you have that like truly good versus truly evil, and there's stakes involved, like literally eternal stakes. Like how you conduct yourself in this life versus these villains or whatever has eternal consequences for you. I think that's interesting, and hopefully other people do too. So,
But Doug, this is a little bit reversed because for once, when there is someone on the panel who has a book out, I'm usually the one who has read it, and in this case, I'm the only one who hasn't read it. So, sorry about that. But
It's okay, Blue. You and I can be friends. I haven't read it.
Right on. I'm not.
okay, well, contact me afterwards. I'll get you guys free copies. So,
No, I already have a copy.
goodness.
That's why I said sorry. I already have a copy. I haven't read it yet.
oh, okay.
Anyway,
He
so
has a fat stack.
I hope for being late, I'm not retreading something. But you talk about the good versus evil, and I'm sort of wondering, since you actually acknowledge original sin and having a sin nature and things like that, when you're writing and developing a character, how much do you kind of look inside and say, well, I understand what sin nature is because I face temptation or whatnot. When you're developing, especially like say your demon character or the flaws in your hero, if there are any, unless he wears a cape, how much of that do you draw from yourself and your own experience, and what popped out in this particular book?
Yeah, so that's actually goes back to like the saying write what you know sort of thing. So it's like I'm simultaneously a veteran and I'm a practicing Catholic. So I was just like, okay, I know those things pretty well. So I wanted to, it would be weird for me if all of a sudden I was, not impossible, but if I was just doing something that was just like totally outside my purview, I had like the research that I would have to do to be able to speak with authority on certain issues would just be like so much. But I've already done a lot of research and literally lived certain things. So the story was informed by my faith, and I guess on some level inspired by Not so much my military service, but a lot of my buddies that stayed in the work, like in the career in the army, and they went to Afghanistan and Iraq. Because I served in the 90s. I got out prior to 9/11, and then my friends, they stayed in, but I'm obviously still friends with them. We get together. I get to hear all their stories and that sort of stuff. So I wanted to honor their service and their the literal, like the physical scars and the psychological baggage that they kind of come back with, but also I don't know, doing them justice, and then doing my own faith justice, but not in like a weird preachy, like you're a bad person if you're not a Catholic sort of way. Like that would be weird, and it would go against everything my YouTube channel was against if I started doing that sort of thing.
Well, that's cool. You drew from your friends as well as your own. That's neat. It sounds like you're doing better than Brian Azzarello in the first issue of that controversial Batman. Oh, geez, which one was it? The one that was controversial for the nudity, but he screwed up more than that. Brian Azzarello, great writer, right? Can't do research outside his purview, which would be something like he gives a blood pressure for Batman, his suitor, or Alfred's talking to him about blood pressure, and he gives a single number in beats per minute. That's not blood pressure. That's a heart rate. I mean, I learned that watching MASH growing up. Come on. So writing what you know really does matter sometimes.
I didn't pay that much attention in MASH.
Can I just say thank you to Tatsunami for $1.50, as I don't know if that's how you say it, for the super sticker. You can't see it in StreamYard for some reason, but apparently it's popcorn. So thank you so much. I as well, what you spoke about earlier, Doug, was the how the characters are so, when in the SJW side of things, they get so prescribed, and because of the political correctness, they can't step outside these really tiny constraints that they have over them. And I remember Zach saying this, this was the ultimate sin of all this, was that they made comics boring. And because you just always know, just by what the character is. It's
right.
A woman, she's in this box. So she's not going to step outside here or there on either side. It's a black character, it's a Muslim character, whatever character, it's a white character. They're all in their little box. So the kind of, you'll know before it's going to happen, before there's anything to even suggest it, that this character, they're going to be bad. This character's going to be flawless and always good, and
right.
That is the ultimate sin, that it made everything boring. Mm-hmm. And that's why we find ourselves in a situation where people are looking to other mediums for good storytelling, right. and then they can just blame it on the virus.
Yeah, the writers, they basically know that if they just kind of give people an ego massage due to their politics or whatever, then that's a way that it's like, okay, well, the writing doesn't need to be strong, because they're just going to be like, yeah, it's like my team is awesome and the other team sucks. And so it's like, it's just intellectually lazy. And to me, it's just kind of gross to just basically write propaganda for people so they, like you, or tell you you're an awesome guy on Twitter. And it's like, you're not a real storyteller. You're an activist who's masquerading as a writer. You're not a writer.
Right. Yeah, pardon me for being late if you went over this already. I only missed I was on for about 3 minutes before Mike let me in. I'm wondering when was your breaking point in terms of this black and white versus gray? Mine was years ago, when I noticed everybody would dismiss their own need to think at all by saying, oh, everything's gray, when it's kind of like pointillism in art. If you want to say A versus B and then look at an issue and say, well, it's just gray. No, it's because A and B don't really apply. It's actually X versus Y, that kind of thing. And they don't realize that if they look into the gray area, they themselves already have little rules by which to discern between, well, if it's gray, how are you going to handle it? And everything does become black and white on a fine enough level, but they don't think enough to go there. So that was my breaking point, where I just said, I'm tired of the intellectual dishonesty and the laziness. And that for me came actually in college, of all things. So when for you was your breaking point where you just said, screw this, I'm tired of gray. I'm tired of gray characters. So if I write, I want a black and white morality to be demonstrable. What was it?
Yeah, it's tough because like you could kind of feel it over, like with cultural stuff, it's kind of like a slower sort of mutation over time. But I mean, the One More Day storyline with Peter Parker and the deal with the devil, that one was that really ticked me off a lot. And then I even went away from like Spidey comics for a while. And then I want to say like around like 2010, where it was just, there was this saturation of this moral relativism, where that's where I started blogging on all of this. I want to say it was like 2009, 2010. And then that plus you could start seeing all these creators on Twitter, and you could see like, you're like, oh, it all makes sense. I could see your ideology on full display. You're literally saying that you just care about like propaganda, and we need to change people's minds. We're not about telling like fun stories. We actually kind of hate our readers, and because they're guilty of this sort of wrong think, and they have to think exactly like us, or they're bad people. And so it was a combination of social media, seeing the creators, seeing that they're rabid ideologues, plus the stories. And I don't know, the industry as a whole, there was just so many concentrated that were all basically activists. And I think that, I don't know, like I said, 2010, probably around then.
This is a lot of heady stuff just to basically say you wanted to just make a fun book.
Yeah, but no, it is heady because you've seen my cartoons that I make, yeah, Doug. The ones where I make the little, and Ethan said in that, this stuff is important. I know it seems silly. It seems like we're just complaining about Captain Marvel or the latest Star Wars movie or something. But this stuff, what you're just talking about, this moral relativism, this absolute rejection of objectivity and a concept of truth, as in there is a truth, something is true, there is real truth, there is real evil and real good out in the world. This complete rejection of that, it manifests first in the cultural institutions that people can get a hold of. They could get a hold of comics, so they did. They got in there and they did it, and then they start, monkeying with it like how we're talking about. But this stuff, it grows and it grows and it grows from there. So you really do have to try to put a stop to it there before it reaches out, because we're all kind of seeing now what's happening, especially in the States. This thing, it just grows and grows until it gets out onto the street, where it's that whole thing. Like, there's no bad tactics, only bad targets, and it's just everything is chaos. It's all out the window. You've got people, screaming, "The president is racist, you effing," and then insert racial slur to an Asian or something, and people yelling at people in the street. It is all connected. It's all part of one giant lurch towards moral relativism, where whatever I feel is right because I feel it, and I'm going to push it onto you.
Yeah, I think people severely underestimate the power of, movies and books and how all of that affects minds. To me, I've always said there's like psychological seeds that are planted in your mind when you're a little kid. They bear fruit when you're a teenager and then as an adult. So when I was a little kid, I was watching, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, He-Man, Thundercats, Transformers, all of this sort of stuff. And actually, those in the early 80s, there was like basically a law, like there had to be some moral message or something along those lines, like because it was tied to toys or whatever. I forgot the exact rule, but all of those cartoons, they usually had like a moral message that was summed up at the end, that was about good and evil and civil, society and how to make it a better place or whatnot. And today, a kid, if you gave him a comic book, it's basically like Food Network, and I don't know, it's like She-Hulk is like doing a cooking show, and it's about nothing because the writers don't believe in anything. It's just this vapid, I don't know, it's just boring.
It could even get worse than that. Imagine you're a young kid and you're you are looking to stories, as we always have as humans throughout history, looking to stories to get that stuff from. And you see your quote unquote heroes punching people in the street for wrong think, or stuff
Right.
like that. This is damaging stuff. We got really lucky with our son. Our son is 2, and we named him Clark. My wife thinks we named him Clark after Clark Gable. I might have a different idea of why we named him Clark, but funnily enough, his favorite hero is Superman. He loves Superman, and he hasn't watched it. He's not old enough to watch a full movie, but we play him little clips of Superman doing Superman things, Christopher Reeves and stuff. He loves that scene where Superman saves Lois Lane on the helicopter, and she says, "Who are you?" and he just answers, "A friend." This is the sort of stuff that young kids need to be seeing when they're young.
Right.
And getting infused with that sort of stuff that I just fear is not happening anymore. And I don't know when it's going to come back, if it's going to come back.
Yeah, there's some great interviews with Christopher Reeves where he talks about the character and what he believes about Superman, and it's great stuff. It's all on YouTube, but he fundamentally understood the character. And then fast forward in time, like you said, yeah, a lot of these actors nowadays, they would take some sort of weird spin on the character and be like, what if he was believed in nothing? What if he was just like, a narcissist and a nihilist or whatever? And it's like, that would be cool. I was like, actually, no, it wouldn't. We'd be subverting expectations if Superman was just evil. And it was just like, not really. That's fine. We're like an Elseworlds sort of thing. That's fine or whatever. But these movies,
Superman's the one character you never want to do that with.
Even in Elseworlds?
Even in Elseworlds. I would say that
watch The Boys.
What's that?
So they can go read The Boys.
I know.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. There's so many strong characters out there. You can go watching other things.
And you can take a Superman-like character and do that with him. Like, what did James Gunn do with? I can't remember the title of it, but he took basically a Superman character, and if he wasn't raised by the Kents, what would he have become? And he had like an abusive father and stuff like that, I think. And you can do that with the Superman trope, but don't do it with Superman.
Right. Well, the movies, when you're putting $100 million, $200 million into a product, I think it was like Jordan Peterson was talking about this. These are like monuments to culture, and they shape people in ways that we cannot even, like, your single human mind cannot fathom all the ways that you are affecting people. And so if you were to spend $100 million, $200 million, that's huge, to be like, let's make an evil Superman movie. It's like, that's kind of gross to do. I won't be seeing that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you're abusing your power, really.
Right.
Hey, speaking of these Superman actors, I forget which one was which. I have a few questions in my head, so I'm sorry. I forget which one was which. I think Reeves got a little bit of criticism for not fully respecting the Superman character, but that was very brief right when he started. And I know that Cavill obscenely described what it's like to get into any role, really, but he was talking about Superman, and he's gotten ripped for that, which I think was a bit deserved. But they what's his name, Reeve especially, right up very, very quickly, was so into that role and what it meant that even for the rest of his life, like, he just could not move, or disrespect the character, at least for the sake of kids. He couldn't, he'd always uphold that. It's funny how such a good character would change and influence the guys who play him, straighten them up a little, if you know what I mean.
A fictional character being the one that, but that's what, the culture has been fighting for all this time. This is what the kids who grew up with Storm being the leader of the X-Men, and Monica Rambeau leading the Avengers, and Daredevil having to fight through his disability and being over his powers actually being something that he felt he was cursed with. And these are the things that kids grew up with that now, as 40-year-old men, they know how to take on challenges, and they know how to deal with the culture, or not the culture, but people who are around them. And, you know, this is what was the bedrock and the underlying education that these kids grew up with, that are now us.
Oh, sorry. Speaking of growing up, that leads to the other thing I wanted to ask Doug about. So we know that I missed this, but I know you a little bit from your streams. We know that I think it was your brother reading you Spider-Man at first, and then you learned to read with Spider-Man. And then you also mentioned these aspirational characters in the kids' TV shows that always had a point to them. But for you, what really influenced you towards that lack of moral ambiguity outside of the church? Was it family? Was it parents? Did you have a mentor when you were a kid? What shaped you that made you what you are now, looking back?
Aside from the church?
Yeah, aside from just the church lessons themselves, but I'm looking for people.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, I suppose probably my older brothers and my dad. My dad always led by example. My dad was also a military guy, and he was Army Ranger and all that sort of stuff. So definitely looked up to my dad. I was pretty like rebellious when I was a teenager, but ultimately I would say that my dad and my older brothers, and then there was like neighborhood kids. There were some older guys. There was one guy, he will never know it, but he gave me some advice about going into high school and how people being fake, and how you need to be like true to yourself and not care what other people think about you. And even if it sucks and people make fun of you, you have to basically just like do what's right and all this. It was like a single conversation with a guy on my block, like that alone, like set me on a certain course. And to me, it's always interesting how you can meet someone and they could say something to you. It could take like 30 seconds or a minute and can totally change your life, but the other person has no clue how they
bring it up to
you.
them later,
Right.
and they say, I don't remember saying that.
Right.
That was just some flippant comment I made.
Yeah. No, everyone has stories like that. You know, they remember the time that someone said this really profound thing to them that really helped them, you know, see something in a way that they hadn't seen before. We just got a super chat actually. Jennifer Grover, thank you so much. Canadian $10. No special message. Just want to say hi to the panel and chat. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. Thanks.
Hello.
Hi, Jennifer.
That's awesome. We saw her on Twitter today.
Is that her? Yes. Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. We have 20 minutes left.
We got to get to the campaign or the book.
Yeah, I just wanted to share this with you. Exactly.
Doug, that's kind of cool. You had sort of a fleet of mentors, a little here, a little there. Very nice.
Yeah, a lot of good male role models. And I guess that would actually tie into the book as well, in terms of the book itself is about strong male role models and father figures and all that sort of stuff. So that's always been pretty important to me.
Yeah, which is unfortunately severely de-emphasized in media nowadays. Like to a horrible degree.
The point when they do it right, they almost instantly kind of really become some of my favorite movies or TV shows of the time. I'm totally blanking on one right now, but there's a movie that I watched recently that had a really good relationship between a father and the child, and it was just so refreshing, and you know, makes for great stuff. So this is the Dave Dorman cover of your next book.
Amazing.
Yeah, Dave was back for another front and back cover, so was very happy with that. Hopefully I'll get him for next year as well, but I had to, you got to get him very far in advance because he's got a lot on his plate. Yeah, he knocked it out of the park. But we basically, myself and Tim just gave him some sort of bullet points about what the story was about. And I was talking to Tim, and he was like, you know what? I had this idea of like Father Redder, and he's in this sub and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that's literally in the script, dude. So he did up like a little sketch, and then he sent it to Dave, and then Dave just sort of did his thing.
Now you're just going to have the one cover again, right?
So on this next one, we're going to be doing it on Indiegogo and Kickstarter. If people don't like one or the other platform, like people just hate whatever platform, they could just come to me directly. I will find a way to get you a book if you want a book. So I know that if you do that, you basically have to mix things up and have different covers. So Tim did do a variant cover for us. and I might have. I talked to Matt. I think Matt might do another cover as well, just to make sure that we're within the bounds of all the rules of doing all this sort of stuff. So I'm not a huge fan of variant covers, but if here or there, and if it's like part of the quote unquote family, the SOULFINDER family, it's like, okay, well, Tim did the first book, Matt's doing the second one, so then I still wanted Tim involved in some way, and so I was like, what about like a bonus section, since Matt did the bonus for the first one? He's like, yeah, I'll do a cover for you. So
Is
That's
this
awesome.
the cover that's going to be on Indiegogo?
yes.
Good.
Excellent.
Okay, that's we're all Indiegogo guys here.
Yeah.
I just wanted
really
to.
hoping.
Yeah,
Really
I just
hoping
wanted,
no, just one cover. I'll give you all a bit of relief and some breathing room. Just one cover, but no, you have to appease both of the exclusive crowds now. So that's
yeah,
that's
and you don't want to go foul of the rules either.
I'm most likely, I would say it's like 95% sure. I was also going to put the first volume and the second one together. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm screwing up now. People liked Matt's black and white so much that I was like, okay, I'll do a hardcover with Matt's black and white, and then the color version right behind that. So on this campaign, that should also be an option as well. But I'll have a different cover for that, for the hardcover one as well. And then next year, I wanted to put the first 3 into 1 volume hardcover.
okay.
James asks, "Hey Doug, will it be international shipping this time? I want you to take my money."
Yes, Iconic Comics. They're actually selling Demon's Match right now, not international, but I think mine's actually going to be the first one where they do international, and we're going to pick like a couple like main countries. So it'll be like the UK, Canada, probably Australia, I don't know, Germany, and maybe like Ireland or something along those lines, and they'll handle that. And then anybody who's in like Croatia, I get random like stuff like that. Like I would just do that myself.
Yeah, Doug, since I got the book after your initial campaign ended, because I was fortunate enough to learn that it was still available from War Campaign. Because as Michael said from the top, I've just gotten into this in the last couple of years, so trying to catch up with everyone. Is Iconic Comics, are they doing the fulfillment for your campaigns, or are they just doing after, like post the campaign?
So on the first campaign, it was Antarctic Press did the distribution. On this one, it will be Iconic that will do it, and then they're going to be putting the books on their website afterwards. So after the campaign's over, people can still get the books, and so they'll be doing that. So moving forward, I have no plans, because I've liked what they've done so far with getting books out to our domestic customers.
Yeah, I did a unboxing of it, and I was very impressed with their packaging. I mean, it was very extensive.
Now,
Yeah.
Doug,
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I was going to say on a stream I did with Tim last week, we sort of unveiled, there was like the boxes have like, they're colored, and they have Tim's characters on the box and mine as well. So that sort of is a foreshadowing of things to come in terms of shared universes, perhaps.
Oh,
cool.
You very flippantly mentioned a submarine. Can you expound on that a little bit at all?
Sure. The second story involves a national security threat. So there's a nuclear submariner, or former nuclear submariner, a commander who got into the occult, and there is a miraculous Eucharist that's at the bottom of the ocean off the coast of Maryland, and he needs it for a black mass. And so there's essentially a race to get this Eucharist before Blackfire's cult gets a hold of it.
Blackfire,
reason to get a hold of it first.
What was that, please? Sorry, I talked over you.
Oh no, that's a good reason to get a hold of it first.
Yeah. Blackfire, remind me, it has been a couple of months since I read it. That's the sort of dark occult group from the first book, is it?
Yeah, there's a demon called Blackfire, and he has a cult that's dedicated to him. And the Soulfinders were essentially like started as a way to, this is like a battle that will go on to the end of time, because demons are eternal. So you can't really, you could basically push him off, or you could thwart his immediate plans, but he will always keep coming back.
Mm-hmm. It's like they
He's
never
like
sleep.
He's like a darker, more sinister version of Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget.
Yeah, something along
He'll
those
always
lines.
get
And
you next time.
but hopefully they could either save the occultist or the people that are, under his possession or whatever. They could free those people. So that's the plan.
Oh,
So
look,
you
Critical
had
Blast had the same idea as me.
You on the last campaign, you had your trading card was really in the style of these old saint prayer cards that I remember from growing up. I was raised Catholic, by the way. That I remember from growing up, where just the look of the text on the back and whatnot. So I think I didn't get one, but that's okay. Just seeing it on the campaign. Are you planning? And I love trading cards, by the way. So are you planning on doing another little card with the book or anything like that?
Yeah, I talked to Tim about that. So in the campaign, there was like, if you didn't get a certain tier, then you didn't get the card. But then after the campaign later on, I had extras. And so then I was putting them in with books. And now I'm like basically almost completely out. So Iconic has been sending some out. I don't think they have them because I literally ran out. I have very few left. But for the second campaign, I did talk to Tim about it. And he was like, yeah, it's a good idea. People liked it. I didn't realize people would like that the cards so much. I was like, we should do another one. And he was like, yeah, let's do it.
And was that deliberate to make it in the style of one of those old saint prayer cards, or is that just my impression of it?
No, that was, so that's another one of those things where Tim, sharing my faith, bringing him on board, I was able to bounce ideas off him, or he just came up with random stuff and kind of, sometimes he had like free reign to kind of like add little details here or there. And then if I didn't like it, I could obviously say something, but we're basically on the same page from the get-go. So anytime he added something, I was like, oh, you actually made it better than before. So that was definitely the plan. And then people that are just not religious, they could use it as a bookmark and do whatever they want with it.
Well,
So
if you are religious, I mean, this is a fictional character. I don't think having,
I'm not religious either, but I still love these stories, and I'm a big fan of this book. I did want to show off this as well, because you did mention that Dave will be also doing the back cover, so people might not have seen this because they always see this. So yeah, you get two Dave Dormans on this bad boy. So that's the guy, I can't remember his name. Doug will be able to tell me. He's the guy
Father
who comes,
Crane.
Father Crane, to enlist the good Father Patrick into the Soulfinders.
Father Patrick.
Father Patrick. Eh? Oh, another super chat. Thank you so much, Jennifer Grover. Wow, coming out another $10. Thank you, guys. Are you all American? I'm just thinking. If so, my Canadian super chats don't go very far. I think $10
So
Canadian is probably
you're Canadian. Your Canadian
There's a Canadian there.
still good here.
Yeah. There's a little yellow avatar up here. He's definitely Canadian. You can hear it. And I think the Canadian dollar is pretty similar actually to the Australian dollar. So anyway, any amount that anybody gives is very greatly appreciated. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
It's going to Australia. I mean, that's pretty far.
I know, they send it all the way over here.
That's
Red
okay.
Gay says,
People
I
make
yank
sure-
Aussies.
YouTube will make sure that the dollars arrive whole because they need to take their cuts. So they'll make sure that it's worth something.
Yeah, they do like to take their cut. When is this next book? When are we going to be seeing it go live?
I wanted to originally have it around the same time as Demon's Match, which was it started shipping like right around Halloween, like the day before or something along those lines. But so Brett R. Smith, he literally started coloring it this week. There's 56 pages, same as Demon's Match. So it really just depends on how fast Brett could get done. Once he's done with his leg of the race, then it could go to the printer pretty quickly, and then I could get it out. But I wanted to print the books before actually launching the campaign. So when we launched, people will know that as soon as the campaign's over, boom, your book's going to be out. So I was like, okay, well, if it gets late into the year and it's December or whatever, like people are not going to care because they know that as soon as they order the book, like, you know, when the campaign ends, we're going to be sending the books out. They won't have to wait 6 months or longer.
Yep. Yep. Even if it does get blown out a little bit, that first, the first few months of the year, traditionally, they've been good crowdfunding months. I think I launched mine in March, I'm pretty sure, and yeah, it was just there's a lot of buzz going around anyway at that time. But I'm sure it'll be good. Oh, that's an interesting thing that you're doing there. You're getting them all done before you even go live.
Yeah, that way I could send a couple books out to people early, and
get the feedback.
I don't know. I just think that there's something about knowing that the book is complete and ready to go, and I could actually like be on a stream and show people the quality of the book. And so not everybody can do that because some people need to like use the crowdfunding campaign to literally fund the book.
Right.
I'm just trying to recoup as much as I can. Like if I make a profit, that's obviously nice. That would be nice.
Mhm.
But at the same time, every creator has different motivations for their campaign or restraints, financial constraints and those sorts of things. So I'm in some way blessed that I don't need to actually use the campaign to pay my artist.
Well, we definitely want you to make a profit, Doug. So we want to see this thing explode.
Absolutely. And sometimes it takes, a couple issues for something to catch on. I mean, we're not following the same model as comics prior. So we're kind of in not necessarily uncharted territory, but certainly something that we're building ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's that relieves a lot of people if they know that you're not going to just do this one and done sort of thing and just disappear. If they're like, oh, this is someone who's okay, I would like more than one book a year. That would be nice or whatever. But if this guy gives me one solid book a year, then I could get on board with that. As opposed to like, is he doing a book? Is he not? But like now it's going to, no, Matt is on board for 2021. And then hopefully we'll be, I have a story for 2022 planned. And as long as he wants to keep doing books, then I will keep writing scripts.
That's fantastic.
That's perfect. Yeah. Hail, Mrs. B. I see you in the chat. Always good.
My wife has turned up. What's she saying? We're planning on using owls to ship our books. Yeah, fans of Harry Potter down here. I mean, the owls, they could actually potentially be faster than Australia Post at the moment. So you never know.
I think the eagles from Tolkien's books probably be faster.
Well, we do have massive eagles here, huge. They're some of the biggest eagles in the world, and I've only seen a wild one once in my entire life. I looked up and I saw just this monstrous creature flying above my head with this enormous wingspan. It would be very, very probably it'd be very good to enlist their help, but probably a bit expensive and hard to wrangle.
It's probably just a leftover from when they filmed Lord of the Rings next door to you guys.
That's right.
Could
They
be.
just settled in Australia after their contract was up.
Well, Doug, it's been a great conversation. It really, like I said at the top of the show, it's really cool to finally meet you. That's one of the reasons why I love doing this show. Just having the opportunity to meet people like yourself out there, just passionate about all this stuff that we're all passionate about. And I will definitely be coming on board for the second book. What's the name of the second book, by the way?
It's Black Tide.
Black Tide. Oh, great
Ooh.
name. Great name.
Good title.
Demons Match and Black Tide. I like it.
Yeah, no, thanks for working with my weird schedule, my work schedule and all that sort of stuff. And, you're overseas and all this, so I appreciate you being flexible with my schedule.
It worked out for me. It's actually Saturday here, so I'm in the future to you guys. So it's Saturday morning. So I mean, no skin off my nose, but more than happy to work something out to get you on. Bandito, Blue, and Poland, always good to hang out with you guys.
Absolutely. Great to be here.
Great.
And it's been a fantastic chat today, as always. Sexiest chat in Comicsgate, as we like to say. Thank you all so much for coming out. Thank you to everyone, especially who sent super chats. That's so generous of you. Very appreciative. And yeah, we'll be keeping an eye out for the next Soulfinder campaign. All right, guys, we'll see you tomorrow.